We spend 20%
I need an
more
acting
on
clerk.
than we spend on police.
Would you be my acting
Me,
clerk?
the acting clerk? Yeah. Oh,
And then you add the 700,000.
I need some names here, though.
All right, if we could all stop our chit chat and come to order here. Are we ready? Gentlemen, I welcome you all to the June 24th, 2015 meeting of the Finance Committee. I do believe this will be the last Finance Committee for this fiscal year with the current sitting. Could I have a roll call, please?
Okay, present is Bonnie Catullo, Alice,
Bailey.
I'm sorry,
Ellis Bailey.
Bailey, Stuart
Novak.
Novak,
Tom Worthing.
Tom Worthing,
Bernie Pigeon.
Bernie Pigeon, Joan Fons.
And Monica Tully. Okay, do I have any citizens' participation? Come to the microphone, please.
Just a question to start. My name is Rich Papano. I live at 4 Pond Street down in Swift's Neck. I seen an item agenda tonight about the Swiss Beach Playground proposal. Would I be allowed to speak during that, or would that be just dialogue between you and the Open Space Committee? I've reserved my comments for then. If not,
I don't really know. I don't even see them present at the moment, although I did invite them to come and be first in line, actually. I think this is an engineering plan for Swift's Beach, and all they are seeking to do at this point, okay, is the way that the operation works with community preservation. Anytime that someone is looking to get community preservation funding grant for a town-owned entity, okay, whether it be a building, property, et cetera, they have to get permission from the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen before seeking that funding from CPC, okay? So this is like step one for them, all right, on these 3 projects. Certainly, you know, you can have discussions with them throughout. We are going to just look at what the idea is, okay? We're not going to approve it or deny it at this point, but give them either deny or approve, giving them permission to seek that grant funding. So-
okay. I would just like to let you know all ahead of time that I'm opposed to any taxpayer funds being spent on the Swift's Neck Playground at this point. There was not
Is this the Swift's Next Playground? I have no idea even what this is all
It's a
about.
Swift's Beach Playground, is they want to make an improvement there. I've been to the open space meeting a couple of weeks ago. They're looking for $11,000 for a design study. They've already had a consultant come in and do a overview of it and the needs and so forth. None of the abutters, which I am one of many, were not consulted at all. They don't know about the history down there. We have had a number of incidents involving the police, not involving the police. There's been vandalism due to the people that use the playground. They vandalized the playground. They vandalized the homes in the neighborhood. There's been broken windows. There's been BB guns shot. People have reported these incidents to the police. There's been retaliation against these people. There's a lot more to this at this point, and I don't think it would be prudent at this time for anyone or yourselves, make your own decision, to use town funds for any further costs involved with the Swift's Beach Playground until this discussion is properly vetted. Like I said, none of us as abutters. I lived there year-round. I've lived there for 16 years. A number of my neighbors are snowbirds. They've just come back for the summer, for the summer, and they're trying to catch up to speed on what's going on with this. And like I said, I just don't think it would be prudent at this time to expend any further taxpayer dollars. And we're going to start here. I just found out about this. I went to the open space meeting. I learned a long time ago. I've been in public service for over 30 years. You follow the money. And I know how people like you in the Finance Committee lend your voices to yea or nay. And I would just like to say I'm opposed to this at this time, and it needs further review, and it should be tabled until further notice. And we will be going to CPC. I found out that they're meeting tonight, and we'll be going to the Board of Selectmen, and the open space also knows our feelings on that. So that's what we have to say. Okay?
Thank you for speaking
Thank you.
up. Okay.
If you're interested, citizen participation. Somebody else came in, I don't know.
Okay. Are you here for citizens' participation, sir?
Yes.
Okay, step forward to the microphone.
Good. Mainly want to talk at the open committee about this playground, but if the Board of Selectmen have something to do with it, I would like to take 5 minutes and say a few words. Okay?
You are certainly welcome to give us your insight on whatever it is you'd like to discuss at this moment.
Okay. Totally opposed to this new playground being closer to the beach for a number of reasons. Resident of Wareham, 42 years, live right next to the beach. 5 Beach Street is where I live. It's been a disaster. The playground that's there now, if you look at things through rose-colored glasses, it would be wonderful. Have a playground next to the beach, and the kids go and they use the playground, and then they leave. And parents, you know, it's really nice. It isn't reality. Because when 9 o'clock comes and the playground is closed and dark, it's a nightmare over there. What's a nightmare? My house has been, because we've had stonings. I want to thank this gentleman. I'm going to talk about him in a second. He helped us, and the chief of police, who wasn't the chief at the chief, unbelievable. We had stonings. Now, my house has been stoned 4 times. One time when we were in it, my wife and I, 6-foot sliding glass windows, smashed the smithereens. Why? Because went out there and said, could you please stop swearing? So at night they come back because they don't have the intestinal fortitude to talk to you. So they come back and get your house. Now I live in Malden, but I'm here half a year because my wife and I are both retired. So I'm back and forth, back and forth. And I even got a deal on my flood insurance because of that too. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. My house has been stoned. Poor Mr. Fontecchio in front of me, who's 80 years old, right? He went out one night, because you know what these kids were doing? They piled their rocks. That's not just little kids. Because when he went out and confronted them, they ran across the ravine into their cars, and they took off. He went out and confronted them, and he yelled at them. You know what they did to him? They stoned him. His wife was in the kitchen, 75 years old, crying. It was I went over the next day and helped them. We swept up rocks, and I'm telling you, some of those rocks, that if they hit them, a little less than the size of a baseball. He has spent thousands of dollars. He's got security cameras on his house. Anything he can do to protect us. We went and saw Mr. Sullivan. We understand. You can't have police there all the time. It's impossible. What did he do? Derek Sullivan, chief of police, and the head of maintenance, who I think retired that year, they put lights up in the parking lot. What a godsend. We mow the grass in front of Mr. Fontecchio's house so the kids can't hide, and when it's dark, now, he just had open heart surgery, stress. Odell Brown, whose house used to be stoned, because Odell would go right after them, and he'd live there, and he'd go after them. They'd run. Then you know what they'd do? They'd come back and stone his house. He'd run. Poor Mr. Odell died this Christmas of heart failure in his bed. I wonder if the stoning had anything to do with it.
It has to do with this.
Maybe it did. Maybe it did.
Oh, it's only-
But I'm going to tell you something. Reason why we're against this park too? Parks are wonderful. I go there with my grandchildren. My little granddaughter, who I love. I've had 3 sons, and my granddaughter, and I've been a high school headmaster, and my granddaughter bosses me around like nobody else can. I go over there with her. You know what she says to me? Papa. She tries to walk on the tires that they have, the sliced, the tire with the 3 thing for the swing thing, broken. The thing she likes to cross arm over arm. She says, Papa, why do they break these? And every time we come, it's broken. The steering wheel they used to have, don't anymore. The pavilion. I didn't know that you're supposed to sit in the roof in the pavilion. I mean, forget the picnic table. They sit in the roof and tear all the shingles off. You reshingle it? Thank you. They tear them off. Today I went down. I drove down just for this meeting, sitting on the roof. Why don't I go over and go nuts? Because when I leave, they're going to stone my house. Now, if this park were on a main drag, like maybe Onset or something, you know, people, police are driving, it's kind of, this is so out of the way that I think this is why the kids are there every night. And if the park is closer, putting the park closer, even where you want to move it next to the parking lot there, or closer to the parking lot, floods. You get a lot of rain. Where it is now, it doesn't flood, but if you move it down there, it floods. So whatever you're putting in for structure or metal or whatever, maybe it's going to rust. But anyway, it's just something that I'm not opposed to the park. I support my neighbors who say, let's fix it up. We'll even help. We'll paint, we'll do whatever we have to do. Maybe if we have some money, let's look at, if you're going to Marion, go down Route 6 by the gateway, the first light, take a right. They have a beautiful park there. But the structure, you can see the type of structure they have. It isn't something that's chipped and all of this stuff here. Maybe something like that in the existing park. Joe Conway Park. Joe Conway, he used to fix when I rented here before I lived here, he did all of Voss's cottages, and Donnie Higgins, who built my house. He was wonderful. That's great. I know Joe very well. I don't want to do anything to take the park away, but I think moving it closer to the beach is now more of an attraction for the night crowd. Got the day crowd, wonderful. So they may say, what else can we do with that area? Let's fix up the basketball court. I used to play basketball with my sons there all the time. They still go over. Now I'm going over there with my 2 grandsons and playing basketball because I can still walk. But now, the other part of it is maybe a tennis court should go there. We run, and I'm the sponsor of the Swifts Beach Improvement Association, the Labor Day races. We have 100 people down there. The kids were doing sack races. Can't we do more things like that? Can't we do things with Onset? Maybe have a little competition so we can get friendly, so Onset doesn't hate us and we don't hate them. And do there's a lot of things. People are over there with their kites and dogs. That's wonderful. They're playing softball games. I live right there. I'm not worried about it. If a ball hit my window and it broke, no problem. I wouldn't mind. If we throw stones through my window and BBs shot in my window, you want to kill someone. And luckily that night, my granddaughter wasn't in that house. There would be trouble, big trouble, serious trouble. So I'm not opposed to the park. Totally, 100% to spend $11,000 to design it closer to the beach. We could do a lot more with the money.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I'm Tom Polari, bud.
Thank you, Tom. All right. I don't even know where to go with this because they are not here. They were told to be here, so. The Open Space Committee. Yeah. So I'm going to skip them.
Open space people aren't here?
No.
Could you tell them that I drove from Boston? It took me 2.5 hours because I left at 3 o'clock. I got here at 5:30, and I got to drive home. Tell them I'm really pissed off now.
Madam Chair, may I say something?
What's that?
You know,
Go to Mama Mary's.
What?
Go to Mama Mary's downtown.
I'm not
It'll
going to
take
get,
you- chill
I'm
out.
not going to get into a big discussion about this because if it's not even going to come before this board tonight.
okay.
I don't know what the whole plan is. This is the first I've heard about it, so I know there's 3 items. One I was very interested in, so if they are not going to come before us, there's not much I can do about it.
That's
Anyway, I would like to introduce the 2 newest members of the Finance Committee, Mr. Bernard Pigeon. Welcome very much, sir.
Thank you.
And Mr. Stuart Novick. Welcome, sir. I feel like the female population is diminishing on this board now. Poor thing,
so,
Joan.
yeah.
You'll be all on your own over there.
We'll work on that.
And since the Open Space Committee is not here, if you're watching at home, you might want to hurry up, get in your car, and come on down here, I think. But I don't believe I have any candidates for the Finance Committee pending. We will definitely need some candidates after this evening and June 30th. We will need a total of 3 candidates, 4 candidates, actually. 4? No, 1, 2, 3. No. Yeah, 3, 4. Wait, 1, 2, 3. There's still an empty seat. Oh, no, that's David. Okay, never mind. That's
No,
David. So
David
there
is-
will be 3. There will be 3 openings on this committee as of July the 1st. I'm going to skip over that, and we're going to go right to the town administrator.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
First, this is not because I'm asking for any sort of transfer tonight, but we all wanted to thank you and Mr. Camerano for your many years of service. It's been, what, 9 years? But it's
8 years, 8 years.
8 years? I'm sure you spent a lifetime in those 8 years? Is that how it goes?
Yeah, I got a lot of gray hairs. I was blonde 8 years ago. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Is there alcohol in those candies?
I don't know, but I
know right now.
can inject some later.
I'd make a joke about stopping by my office, but I'm sure someone would take it seriously. Madam Chair, tonight we have before you, we did not believe we were going to need a municipal relief transfer. However, we do require one, and it is to the LIUNA, which is the Laborers Pension Fund. If you remember, we have two pensions. One is the Plymouth County, which is the general. We have a second, which is the LIUNA. That is based off of the hours that they work. There's no liability to it. It's just pay as you go on it. So that's not not one that increases realistically. We've budgeted $50,000 for it next year. We had $45,000 in this fiscal year. So when we went through the reconciliation, they revealed that there was an underpayment of a little over $2,800. We currently have in the account a balance of $5,039.38. However, we've had the June payment will be roughly $3,500, so we will be requesting a $3,000 transfer just to make sure that we have a buffer for any such activities. And this should take us through the end of the fiscal year. Speaking with the town accountant, everything else looks to be right on. This was the one that was closest. Surprisingly, the one that I was concerned about for the entire year, if you remember, was unemployment. And that's gone down to from a bill of $30,000 a month to $5,000. So we will have plenty of funds within that account.
Okay, so we have a departmental transfer of $3,000 from the planning salaries lines to the LIUNA account. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion, go ahead.
Explain the lunar
Use your mic,
account.
please.
Explain the lunar account one more time. We had a little question. It's
Yeah,
for retirement?
Yeah, it's a separate pension for anyone that's in the Laborers International Union. That's so that would be clerical members, the laborers, including the foreman, and that's wastewater as well. And what happens is, I don't know when the town actually entered into agreement with them on it, but at some point they established that the town would pay a certain amount of cents, and it's going to depend on each union. Some of the unions have a higher amount because they've bargained more. Some of them have a lesser
So
amount.
we found a shortfall in it, that's what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's, this is just it is another benefit. However, we don't have to worry about it in the sense of, if you will, large liabilities such as our own pension. This is what you're charged and this is what you have to pay, and it's based on the hours worked. So if people's salaries increase, that does not increase the obligation. This was it's really an interesting fund. We're actually going through an audit with them as well, and you would think that they were the IRS the way they're going through everything. So they're pretty tough.
Yes. Any other questions? Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the line item transfer of $3,000. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? It's approved. What else do you have?
Thank you very much. I've been tracking the parking versus the previous fiscal year and where our estimates are. So for this fiscal year, we're estimating at the high end, we brought it in about 140,000 last year from the kiosks. We're estimating at bringing in at 147,000 this year. The reason for the increase, but not that much, is actually twofold. We did charge for May, the full month of May this year, and that brought in, I believe, $11,000. However, the Shell Point parking lot was a kiosk lot. However, the selectmen have approved the use of any resident within the town of Wareham that has the beach pass. The beach and dump pass is allowed to park there without having to pay at the kiosk. So we know there will be a decrease in that. So they should offset a little bit, but still end up with about a $7,000 increase over the previous fiscal year. We did lower some of the amounts in some of the other parking lots, but everything seems to be trending well. We do this year have as we told everybody we would, use the parking funds to have parking attendants, if you will. And the two gentlemen that we have are excellent, not just in that they're writing tickets, but in that they're actually going into businesses, telling people that they're, when they're parking in front of there, because, I know telling the finance committee it's not necessarily about revenue is the worst thing I can do. However, this is, when it comes to the parking, it's it's really about parking management, and that's where the ticketing and such comes in. However, these people, these two gentlemen, I believe, have written close to 200 tickets since they've come on board, and that's at $30 a ticket. So, now you'll have some spoilage on there, if you will. Some of the tickets will be either reduced or maybe eliminated altogether at a ticket hearing. However, there will still be some income. And this year we used the parking revenues again we hired a private company to sweep in the onset area. That's things that are allowable for those funds. So it's really helping us to keep the onset area over there up and running as well. You'll also see about town, and it is finance related as well, that there's been the striping and the painting of the crosswalks as well, and that's been used from the winter recovery funds that Governor Baker had released, the roughly $108,000 that we'd received. But we're not using all the 108, roughly $35,000 of that's the line painting. We used to have an annual line painting budget of $25,000, and that's been reduced to zero. So,
Well, they used to do the line painting, they dip into that parking fund
correct.
chronically. $10,000 a year, I think, was the number that was always
Yeah.
drafted out of there for line painting and signs.
So that's, as we've tightened up our controls, certain things are not necessarily allowed to be paid out of certain accounts, and, it affects some of the budgets, but at least we're working on it properly.
Good.
The auditors were in about 3 weeks ago continuing their conducting of the preliminary audit, doing some of the tests, asking for some of the documents. They'll be back in August. So that seems to be going well. There was no, panic button being pushed. So that's actually, if you're not familiar with us, that's a very good sign.
It's a very good sign. In early.
We are part of the, if you will, it's got an acronym for it, but we're working with the state to be one of the communities that gets its tax rate set before Thanksgiving this year. So they were asked to enter that, and we have entered into that program. We're working closely with the Department of Revenue. We've already had them down going through the Springtown meeting, all the warrant articles, including the budget. Everything that we've done is passed through with them, and it's basically setting up the tax rate recap before we even enter into the next fiscal year. So it's These are all signs of the positive, and I appreciate the work that the finance director, Mr. Foster, and the town accountant, Ms. Lazan, and their staff have been doing.
Wonderful.
So I'm giving you, for one of the first time, good news.
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Dominic.
Through you to Derek.
Mike, please.
The new agents here that are doing ticketing, are they going to be also working in the Shell Point area, you know, for the resident, people that don't have resident stickers, you know, and I'm not saying like right in downtown, but more towards the beach area?
They actually will be, they go throughout all the residential parking area as well. They're not just in the kiosk, they're part of the whole parking program. The revenues that they write on the tickets do go to the general fund. Those do not get encumbered into the
Yeah.
parking funds.
No, I'm glad they're doing tickets. I just want to make sure that now that the beach season is here, on the weekends, you know, people don't necessarily park in the center of town, but they park towards the beach.
Correct.
And that's a big key area.
I had someone write in today about their ticket, and they said they've lived in Wareham their entire life. They've been parking at the beach. They've never heard of the parking program, and this ticket should be abated because there's basically they've never heard of it, and they don't believe that there's one existing. So I can tell you by the amount of times I've had my ear chewed off the parking program exists. So.
I'd like to volunteer to hear the tickets, you know, I'd be a good officer for that. I'd only need one stamp, Derek, denial.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to get no okays on that one, pal. So sign me up.
He's going for his retirement from the FinCom. I can see it.
I couldn't think of a better spot for you
That's
now.
right.
Are you gonna get to 147 or not?
This year, that's my projected goal for is 147. Obviously, it's going to depend on weather-related factors as well. Every weekend, if we lose a weekend, that's a major cost because our weekends can bring in between $8,000 and $11,000, depending on.
You're
depending
tracking
on
it
the
every
weather.
week, right?
You can track it daily. We use Calais America. They have a back office web login, and I might be a little sick because I was at the pier yesterday, and I pulled it up on my phone to check what had been brought in for the day on there. I said I should probably leave. This isn't right. But it's you know, having the real time checking on it in real time, and there are associated costs with it, but they are hit out of the monies that we take out of the parking fund at town meeting. In other words, every credit card transaction, there's a credit card fee that reduces it overall. But I think the goal of 147,000 is
Okay, but you know
real.
where you are versus yesterday,
Right.
and you know where you were last year, and you know you've operated more days, so you ought to be able to project. If we
In
do as
July,
well as we did last year, we're gonna get to 147.
we're ahead of last year for May because
Yeah.
we didn't do it the previous May.
By 11
However,
grand.
we've had the July and August of last year both brought in just under $50,000, and you had another $13,000 in September. When you took in what they had in June, we brought in approximately $141,000. We're trending higher than that. However, I pulled up the Shell Point, and I compared it to the previous fiscal year, the previous year, what we had for collections, and we're running a little higher in Shell Point, but that's because May it was opened up. So it's you know, Tom, that's my prediction is right now that's what I've set is the 147,000, which is approximately 6,000 more than the previous year.
I mean, you ought to have some weekly curve that you just measure how you did against last year and know where the heck you're gonna go.
The parking program makes some people angry, Tom.
Pardon me?
The parking program makes some people angry, so I try not to.
Any expansion in the horizon as far as new kiosks or any?
What we're going to be bringing to the road commissioners is if you go up Union Ave, the island in the middle, we'd like to remove the island in the middle, including remove the telephone pole and create the angled parking on both sides, which would
that'd be
increase the number of parking spaces that were allowed. And we'd like to put the, I don't know, from the compass, so if you're going up the road, the right-hand side, we have a kiosk, we'd like to put one on the left-hand side. And I also believe we may add one more kiosk to the pier, just to make it easier to get to. The other one to the pier probably wouldn't generate more revenue. However, we did have, when we started them up again, we did have issues with 2 out of the 3 on the pier. So I think we had some loss in revenue just because at some point some people may not, if they tried one and tried the other, they probably gave up and went to the beach. So
Any other questions for our town administrator?
How are you doing with EMS?
EMS, we're
Yeah.
tracking to go a little bit above 1.3 million. So that will clear our costs plus a profit, and it will also bring us to above what we've budgeted for FY16. If you remember, FY16 is a very large increase. My concern is with the DOR and for a offset receipt account, if we did not, and I believe we budgeted, I'm going to use 1.3 million, Tom, off the top of my head. If we budgeted 1.3 million in FY16 and we did not bring in 1.3 million the previous fiscal year, you need to explain to them why you believe you'll be increased, and they may not necessarily accept it. However, we've talked to them, we've shown the projections, and everything looks like we'll meet the mark to cover what we've budgeted for FY16 out of FY15 revenues.
And how about the calls that are being handled by out-of-town services within Wareham?
Well, we've had a major reduction of those because we're running 2 ambulances essentially, especially during the day shift. I don't have, what I'd like to do is at the end of the year, do the number of calls versus the previous fiscal year. And I don't know if they track out-of-town calls. That's why I should check with Dave. And if you remember, one of the things is the EMS was treated almost as just a pure cash cow, just bring us more revenue over. Don't consider, don't.
Your own expenses,
Yeah,
your own
don't
capital
create
issues.
any
you
more
have.
issues, no more, don't put capital monies into that. And I think one of the big changes was a neighboring town padding their $300,000 machine and saying, hey, we bought this off of the calls that we did in your community. So, you know,
But you don't know weekly how many calls we had and how many were within Wareham, how many outside of Wareham, things of that nature?
Tom, I probably could, but in all honesty, at some point, we only have enough hours in the day to track monthly on most of these.
But the EMTs do know, right?
The director would know if he was
Yeah.
following. You know, they have the reports and such.
You asked
Right.
David, he could give you that
He
information.
should be able to give it to you.
Yeah.
You should ask for it weekly.
Yeah, we really, Tom, we break it down monthly on most everything. Yeah, I understand weekly would give you, it's a little intriguing. Like I said, I played around.
You're adding more temporary EMTs,
Correct.
so you want to know how many of those you got and what our costs are versus
Yeah, when we
what
do
your
the,
services.
well, you also have to remember, we had, in this fiscal year, we've probably had 3 of our permanent guys leave for whatever, which also means we bring part-timers in to cover full-timer shifts. So it's not always necessarily about when we're bringing them in for the extra shifts. Sometimes they're covering normal rotations and such. And I know what you're saying about weekly, but for data-driven analysis, however, we really don't drive that deep into it. A monthly reconciliation is what we work with on it. Yeah.
You got a $1.3 million business.
Yes.
You ought to track it probably daily, but go ahead, you're running it.
Anyone else? Any questions for the town administrator? No? Anything else for us? We're all set for 4th of July? It's on Saturday, or we're covering both Saturday and Sunday, or Friday night too?
Yeah, Saturday, it should be the fireworks. They notify us by noon if they're going to cancel, so we can notify our staff, especially the police officers. This year, municipal maintenance will not be there. They will be, the organizers will be cleaning on their own, so that's a bit of a tall order, so help them out. Please don't trash the area. It's going to be volunteers working on it to
Nice.
clean up the area.
Okay.
Put the barrel down by my house.
Better put extra barrels down
People
there.
use it because they walk by, you know,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I walk right by my house from the parking lot, and I was tired every year. I said, why should I go and pick it all up, and if I put a barrel there, people use it.
Yep.
Better than picking it up off the ground.
Good for you. All the neighbors in Onset put a barrel in
Put a
front of your
barrel.
house.
If you're in that main drag, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's after the fireworks. You know what's interesting is, and this is just sort of a side note, is when you think about, we've had staff that over the last, let's call it 20 years or so they've worked for us, have never had a 4th of July holiday off. When it comes down to it, because they're always working during these things. So it's we're going to have some people enjoying some barbecue.
Yeah. Well, no, they keep every police officer works on
Yeah.
4th, I know that, so, they have to. And they've got a good structure going. They've done it
Yeah.
enough times that they know how to get the job done, and as long as people don't be stupid, it's great.
Yeah.
It works. Anything else?
No,
No bad news. This is good.
No. Even if I had them, no, it's your last night.
You're not going to tell
Bonnie.
me
I'm
on
not
my
gonna
last
give it-
day?
Let's go on happy.
All right, then. We are going to, I'm very disappointed over this. I don't know whether there's a communication situation, but as soon as these people emailed me, I emailed them in return that I was putting them on this date. She even emailed me back saying that she asked to be up front or up first, and I said, we will try to accommodate you, so I'm not really sure what happened on that. They will probably have to seek another date with the Finance Committee. So that brings me to item D, which is the reorganization of the board. Now, I think it's going to be up to you that are going to remain whether you want to choose to do that at this meeting or choose to do that at your first meeting of the new fiscal year.
Well, it may be appropriate to do it at this meeting because you need someone to drive the next meeting.
Yeah, we did do it last year. We left it open with the senior person being the one to chair the next meeting, which was myself. And then decided how we wanted to do that. There is one member who's absent at this moment, who's not here right now. But you are going to need some organization because you have 2 empty chairs, and you can't have an appointing authority without a Finance Committee chairman. But I will leave it up to the rest of you to decide how you'd like to proceed with this. Can you speak right into the mics? I can't hear you with the fan behind me.
I guess I'd like to hear what David thinks in addition to what everyone else.
Is your mic on? Because I don't think it is.
on. There's a green light right there.
Okay. A little volume on him, thank you. Is it gone?
Yeah, it was on.
I would actually nominate David in absentia as chairman for next year.
That's
That
probably
would-
not a bad idea, but I don't think he has the time.
That was what I was afraid of.
And I would second it.
Well, I was going to nominate you.
Clerk. With David.
I don't know that he's
But he
expressed
not
an
being
opinion of
here.
actually wanting to do it or not.
Right, he not being here, right.
But he did say he would not be here. We pushed our last meeting off as far as we could push it, just in case anything like what came up. That was the reason.
David basically, I got the impression
think every chairperson does. I mean, my situation was, you know, I did it with the understanding that my vice chair would fill in when needed. You know, Donna was pulled in other directions as she went along. But this is going to be some pretty important years coming up here. Some pretty important stuff that needs to be done. And you're going to need a chair and a vice chair that can work together and share those responsibilities.
You did a lot of the homework though, too. And I think one of the things that I would recommend is to be stricter with the people that come before this board as to what preparation they should have done for this board before they show up here. I think many a time, you were the one that basically laid out, this is what this law is, or this is what that. And that really should be the center. Whoever's sponsoring a warrant article ought to have more homework done. I'm thinking in particular the one with the sprinkler system. I mean, that was just,
You don't like the nightgown?
what?
You didn't like the nightgown?
No, that was,
When
Come
you
on.
were, when
That
you
was a-
invited the
That was
open
a finance
space,
committee precious moment. Come on.
when
that
you
was
invited the
that
open
was-
space committee, I was happy you didn't invite the cemetery committee to come in right now.
you know, I mean, we all had to go out and read through the books and everything else like that. And this is a volunteer committee that volunteers time. I would just ask people to come, including our friends at the town, who also on several occasions had poorly written warrant articles that floated around and changed and everything else like that. You know, if you're not ready to put it in concrete, don't jump up, ask us to put it on the agenda. I would encourage the committee to be, for want of a better word, a lot tougher, and ask for respect for the folks doing it. Because, there are times when I really felt that we weren't respected, and for the volunteer time that everybody was putting in.
Yeah.
So whoever chaired it, I think that was David. And frankly, any of us who thought about being the chair, that was a big concern. I have personally, I don't have a problem
I know.
to do that.
I know. I know that you had every intentions of finding your niche in something else, and I appreciate that.
Stay, think about the chairman, I mean, it's a turnoff, it's the amount of work that has to get done because people come here and they're not prepared. Or there's no process, and that's another thing. Speed approval, there ought to be a sheet of paper, this is what goes on with speed approval, and you check off this one first, and after you do that, then you come here.
There is actually a structure for that, but
Twice.
it hasn't, that structure hasn't been adhered to for a while. That's why they're bringing it back.
You have to demand it.
It is there.
Yeah, you have to demand it, or they don't just show up.
What's that?
Yeah, you have to demand it. I mean, if they don't have their presentation, because we're here trying to make a decision, we need the information. And if they're lackadaisical in doing it, they should just be told, go back and make another appointment. Don't waste our time.
Well, sometimes it's the other boards in town also. It's a local town board issue where that one just seemed to be at in the end after
Then from my point of view, they don't get their article approved.
Well,
And they've done that.
we just recommend to town meeting approval or not.
Well, we refuse, from my point of view, the committee would then refuse it, not recommend it, put a 0 line in that item, and let them approach the town meeting themselves.
I'm guessing
It's-
David's
it
on, what,
is
2 other
the-
committees at this
Trying to
point?
find a way to organize it. We had a good town meeting, it was boom, boom, boom. But
And he's an
homework
engineer
ahead of time,
with a full-time job.
wasn't coming from the folks that wanted to approve.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
That was about
Well, if it doesn't come before
He's a
us and
full-time
properly approved, then
He talked about working at the
Claire's
New Point or
job
something.
becomes a little easier because
Didn't he work at the New Point
it's
or
up to
something?
town meeting, or more difficult
Oh,
because you gotta do
okay,
the
so
whole
he's retired at
town
this
meeting
point.
then
Got it.
to understand the presentation. But the board is the filter. This is the filter.
I guess the board was bent over backwards trying to accommodate.
Well, you should, because, and you try to help them along and even write it for them if necessary. if they're a petitioner, so it gets done and for them, you help them as much as possible. But the boards themselves, they're held to a higher bar. They have to really do their homework because that's their job.
Okay, can we come back to point?
What was that?
Well, the point was, do you wish to restructure and, at this time, or would you prefer to wait for your first meeting of the new fiscal year?
I move that we wait for our first meeting of the new fiscal year.
Okay.
Second, yeah.
Then I would propose a motion
I already have one.
to appoint David Hurd to chair the first meeting.
Inclusive of Dale Ellis's motion? Include
Yeah.
that in Ellis's
To
motion?
chair the first meeting and restructure at that time. Because you have to have a chairperson.
No. Accept that change, Ellis?
I do.
There a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right, I will make sure David's informed. And on that respect as well, I will not assign a meeting either, because that's going to have to be his decision, when his availability is. Right, it wouldn't be until after the 1st of July anyway, which means they will have to get in touch with the Open Space Committee so that they can come back before them, before they can go to the community preservation. All right, do I have any other business?
I would like to recognize the two people who are exiting.
Pull your mic down, Tom, he's yelling at me in the corner again.
We talked about the time involved in the job, and I didn't realize you'd been here for 8 years, Bonnie. I just sort of figured 6, and you pay 16 meetings a year and 2 hours a meeting, so that's 100 hours or 200 hours or 5 weeks over the past 6 years that you've just sat in here and listened to this. And it does not include all of the time outside where you worried about it and woken up in the middle of the night and I say, my God, what are we going to do? And so that is a significant amount of
Energy.
commitment. And so that you know that we think of you and we want you to think of us. We've got a couple of things here for you and young Dominic. Dominic, you've always been interested in a little more black.
Yes.
So there's a little more black.
Thank you, very well put,
You've always
sir.
been interested in silver.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
No red ink in my house.
My goodness, what is this?
Can I open it?
Sure.
All right. Open it up. You're getting emotional here. Nice, what's this bag? Beautiful. Right in my office.
Oh, that is cool.
I fish a lot in here, this
Yeah.
is great.
Does it show you where the fish are?
Wait a minute, I gotta put my glasses on so I figure out which end is
I
up.
know where all the fish are, I've been out here my whole life fishing.
Thank you, that is so cool.
Thank you very much, guys.
You're welcome.
It's,
Travel my way all the way around on, I've been out all these, yeah.
yeah, me and Bonnie's a fisher lady too. She's been out
Beautiful,
there.
thank you so much. I actually have a gift for someone. This was given to me by the past chairman. So who would like to have control of these 3 lovely books? This is fun to read, by the way.
I hate to say this, but I read it. I already read it. I'm sorry I read it.
I'm gonna give these down here to Mr. Pigeon, although I'm sure he's read them all, from cover to cover.
I actually read that.
There you go, sir.
I read it.
You don't used how many times?
I read that
You
too.
do?
That's a boring read, that one.
Do you have the abridged edition?
No, no.
Madam Chair, if you're done,
Thank you, I think.
I'm gonna do one more thing, and then,
Did I just like to speak before?
yep, madam?
Good evening, Madam Moderator.
Good evening. I just want to add my thanks to Dominic and Bonnie for all that you've done. I know when we get around town meeting time, it's a mad rush to get things done, and I've tried very hard to make it a smoother transition. I'm continuing to try. You may have 4 or 5 articles in the next week to start working on. So we are trying to improve. But I want to thank you for all that you've done. You both, I've sat and watched you at a lot of meetings, and your input and your knowledge of the community and the finances. Hats off to both of you. Thank you for stepping
you.
up and volunteering.
Thanks.
Thank you for your
Thank you for your
encouragement as
time
well.
also.
We're not gonna go and hide. Dominic and I are gonna go sit way up in the rafters.
Yeah, throw spitballs, cause trouble.
I need approval of meeting minutes of June the 3rd, 2015.
Move that we approve the meetings of June the 3rd, 2015.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay. We will leave the next meeting time and date to be announced in the future. Anything else, Dominic?
No, I would just,
Pull your
like
mic
to-
down. Mike.
I would just like to, just say a few words before I leave. It's been great, great learning experience. I wish you guys, I'll be around, but I wish you guys a lot of luck, and I know Tom and I know Ellis, some of you guys have been on for a while, and I know you take it real seriously, and I just appreciate it, and keep up the good work. And it's been a great learning experience, and I'm happy I did it, and maybe after a year, if you guys are still with it, maybe I'll come back and bother you. But thanks.
I too want to thank everybody for their encouragement and their understanding at times. I wish Joan Luck, being the last lady left over, sitting over here, well, except for Kelly. Kelly's not going anywhere.
Kelly's on over there.
I do encourage people, if you're listening at home, that, you know, it's not always a burden. It's been a learning experience. I've learned more than I've ever wanted to know about municipal finance, but was afraid to ask. I'm going to write that book. Yeah.
I told you 8 years ago.
Yes, you did. So, they said earlier, there is 3 seats that will be available. If you've ever thought about something you want to do with your life, to be a contributing member of your town that you live in, this is definitely a place to feel like you did something that was worthwhile. I have never regretted it. But yeah, I'm going to say adieu. I have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Good night.